Okay, guys, we are joined by Morgan because I was going to try and do a team for the autumn internationals for Wales, try and work out where they're going with this team. And it was just too much for me. So I basically reached out and I said, Morgan, please help. If you haven't seen Morgan before, he's on the Mad Dragon YouTube channel with Welsh content, Welsh rugby content, and gaming content. It's really cool stuff. And I'm sure Morgan will update us on that as we go through this chat. But Morgan, thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me on, Rich. I'm sure we can fix all of Welsh rugby in a single call.
Yeah.
It'll be great. It'll be so easy to do, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I've got a Pims here, so I'm just getting nice and loose here for this one because it's an interesting one. So, first of all, before we dive in, how positive are you feeling, Morgan, for this Welsh team going forward? Are they on the right track?
It's we're at a tough little crossroads, right? It's the talk of the rebuild, the restructure. You got to give it time. It's all youngsters and stuff. I've personally begun to say we've gone beyond that now. You've done your Six Nations, you've done your summer tour. Now you've got to start seeing the results. We're seeing Australia with a new coach and a brand new team doing well. We've seen England with Borthwick, who's had just as long as Gatland with the team, and England seem to be doing well. I think we're at the stage now where you're sort of going past the leniency period. You're moving into results are needed, but yeah, the team really needs to get something together at this point in order to feel like a very confident. I did catch the last game against the Reds on the weekend. They took that by a point,
Yeah.
and it's not just a top end club level team. It's a club level team missing a lot of their key players over in Australia, and he still can just about squeeze by with 1 point, even with again lower cap Wales team. I'm sure there's still a lot of injuries and stuff, but I still think there's a lot that needs to be improved.
Yeah, so I mean, we're going to go through some players here, Morgan, and we're going to try and hash out a team that they need to go into the autumn. And I think you're right. Now's the time where they need to almost kind of nail their colours to the mast and say, this is the team going forward. Because I feel this still isn't even very close to their best team. So do they bring back a load of old heads? So let's jump straight into the props here. Do they bring back players do they bring back Nicky Smith, who hasn't been selected at all? Do they reach out to Thomas Francis, the tight head, who's in France at the moment, and say, please come back? Or do they just stick with what they've got?
Nicky Smith was one I was astonished didn't get it, because I saw a couple of the URC games and stuff, and there was Ospreys going up against Cardiff, and Nicky Smith was there in the Osprey scrum, and it dominated the likes of. You've got the Domachowski with the Cardiff, you've got Azarati as well, and
Yeah,
this guy is out scrummaging them and not getting into the team. I think Nicky Smith was one quite a few people sort of scratched their heads about
there
not
must
getting
be
in.
something that Gatland doesn't like about him. Have you got any inside track on what it might be?
I don't know. I think in the world of Welsh international rugby, anyone can have any reason to seemingly get on either too many beers on a night out, or or a quick punch up in your training sessions. I think we've
Yeah.
seen it all over the last few years.
Okay, so Nicky Smith for you comes back in, you
I think I
reckon?
would have him back in. I think there's good competition between him and Gareth Thomas for that
Yeah.
loose head.
Okay, so those two somewhere in the 23 for you. Is it
Yes,
simple as that?
yeah, I haven't seen anything. I'm still yet to see a game from the likes of Domachowski where I've actually gone,
Yeah.
that is a great game. I
Yeah.
just haven't seen one. I would lean on some lads that I would go for. It'd be Nicky Smith and
Yeah,
Gareth Thomas
and
for me.
maybe the third one, Henry Thomas, as a good scrummager.
Yeah, I would say. I mean, Matthias has not
Yeah,
done
yeah,
too bad either, so I could look at him
yeah.
potentially getting in as well.
Okay, so maybe kind of Matthias, Gareth Thomas, Nicky Smith is your three, with
Yeah,
Thomas and Nicky Smith is your kind of guys in the 23. Yeah.
I think so.
Okay, pretty happy with that. Do we pull back Thomas Francis to go alongside Griffin, who's been Archie Griffin, who has been the find? I'm not saying I saw it, but in the Six Nations, I did say I see something in this guy. He's, for someone who's just been drafted in, who's barely played a game of professional rugby, he did bloody well. And then in Australia, he's really taken a step up as well. Do you just stick with him as your starter?
I think he's the start. I think that's probably the only shining thing you've seen
Yeah.
across especially the summer, at least, is someone to actually look to step up, who wants the shirt. I think he's absolutely the guy who stepped in. I mean, that first game against Australia, what did he do? 73 minutes or
Yeah.
something outrageous for a
Tight head.
tight head.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I and he's not playing badly by any means. He's up for going against big teams in the scrum for as long as that in a game. I think his carrying game's doing well. He's been doing well at the breakdowns. I think for me,
absolutely.
he's the guy in. I think
The only
depth
thing on the
wise,
downside is that he just hasn't played much top level
no.
rugby. And I wonder what's going to happen at Bath, because obviously you've got Thomas Dutoy and Will Stewart. Is he going to start getting in ahead of Stewart? That would be interesting, wouldn't it? But he needs to play. He needs to play for club.
Or maybe there's a wider, thing to be looked at in Welsh rugby about these are the guys you want to be pulling back into
Yeah.
your Scarlets, your Ospreys, and what have you, and get them game time on the pitch if you're
Especially
feeding
those
them through to.
props. Yeah. I mean, you've lost
Yeah.
Reece Carey as well. He's obviously gone now as well to England. So do we get him back in? I don't know what his contract's like at Bath. I imagine he's not on anything particularly big at the moment because he's not a starter or anything. So
But
do they
I don't think the
get him
Welsh
back?
regions are offering anyone a big contract either. And if you are starting, I think that's one of the issues they're having at the minute.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so Griffin stays. Does Thomas Francis come in and cover on the bench?
I've always liked Thomas Francis. I always think he's just a steady head for
Yeah.
me. Is he your outright starter who you're looking to just monster a game? Maybe not, but I think in terms of just cool head, someone that's going to be able to hold it, I would probably be picking Tom Francis over. Again, Azarati's in a similar boat for me as Domachowski.
Yeah,
I've just not
Zarate.
seen a game where he's blown me away. And then you've got
Would
the
you
game against Springboks where Gatland even took him off.
would you bring back Dylan Lewis as the
Again,
third?
Dylan Lewis, another one. Fitness is the only thing for
Yeah,
Dylan Lewis.
yeah.
It's a half gamer sort of deal, but I think he puts the effort in for half a match, so I wouldn't be adverse to having him in.
All right, okay. So we're getting somewhere here, and I'm guessing Dewey Lake stays as the hooker, maybe the captain. I don't know. Would he say as the
Yeah,
captain for you?
a captain. Well, if we had the joy of everyone's fit, everyone's
Let's say
healthy, everyone's
everyone's
in,
fit.
I'm still looking at Jack Morgan
Okay.
for me if he was still there. Dewi Lake, I think, is just for the ball carrying that he offers. I
Yeah.
think he's one of the few in the Wales squad at the minute that's actually getting past any sort of tackle. So I think he's going in at starting hooker. I think alongside him, you're looking at Elliot D.
Yes. Yeah.
I think
back in on the bench as the backup.
yeah, and I mean, they always try and pull back Ryan Elias
Oh,
in.
they love Elias, don't they?
I
He's a
haven't.
big lad. I'm not quite sure what the hype's about, but
No, I've had endless fights in comment sections of people saying, "Why do you talk so negatively about Ryan Elias?" And again, another one. I just think I'm desperately looking to see what so many other people see at an international stage, and I unfortunately
he's
just don't
strong.
see
He's
it.
a strong guy, isn't he? He can physically front up, so I think that's kind of it. But now you've got Lake, who's kind of physically a monster, if you like, hooker wise. There's probably less need for him, but Lloyd Daniel, I'm not convinced with those two, but
We
I don't know.
didn't see a great deal of time
No.
I didn't see a lot. We had time with him in the Queensland Red games, but then at one point they had Lloyd and Dewi Lake on at the same time. I'm not even sure who Dewi Lake came on for. I think he might have come on at number 8, and they
Yeah,
said just run forwards with the ball, and even then outshone him on the pitch.
it
So
wouldn't be a bad number 8, I tell you.
no,
No,
I wouldn't
no,
get in his way. I wouldn't tackle him.
absolutely. Okay, so Lake starting, D on the bench. I think we're getting a bit better in the front row there, especially with the time that Archie Griffin's had. So I think come the autumn could be looking a bit better there. Then the big question, the second row, do the old heads come back in? Does Will Rowlands and Adam Beard, do they just roll back into town, and Schwinzer and Dafford Jenkins, they take a back seat? Because
If
this
you
is a
go in,
massive call for Gatland here.
yes, I mean the joy of choosers is you've also got him for the 4-6, so
Yeah,
not at all a bad player to have in a squad, but even just to be on the bench for your broader coverage
for
is a
sure.
really
Yeah.
nice move. Will Rowlands is a really great player all round, except for the penalty count. It's always been my thing with Will Rowlands. I just haven't seen a game where I don't think you get anything less than about 4 penalties out of him. And it's just so if he cuts that out of his game, I think he's absolutely a nailed on lock you could have in there. I still think Adam Beard is worth having in there, mainly for his ability to disrupt another team's maul. The Wales attacking maul has been great. Defensive maul has been a bit shaky here and there, so the ability to have someone like Beard in to ruin
Those
that for another team.
telescope arms are just so useful, aren't they? Just swimming
Yeah.
through mauls. Does he start though? I mean, let's talk about Jenkins. I'm going to be a bit controversial here, but I haven't quite seen that top level quality from him. He's a hard worker. He's a grafter, technically good. I don't know. Maybe he needs more time, but I'm not overly blown away.
He's a player that I think you want to specifically watch him. And again, I don't think any stats really seem to ever back him up. I don't think he ever. But if you actually just sort of watch the graft he does in the background, he's the guy pushing somebody else over the try line. He's the one who breaks through the extra tackle. He's doing it's doing stuff that I don't think you get any credit for.
I think
You
you're
have to
right,
really keep an eye on him specifically, I think, to be able to judge that he's doing things. So I think he's doing well, but again, penalties for him, he just silly. I've seen there's a few cards even in the club level for him, and it sort of carries through to the international of, just avoid the penalties, better discipline. But I think he's been doing okay at lock. I think for me, you maybe still stick with Will Rowlands and Adam Beard for your immediate starters. I don't think there's anything wrong with having with David Jenkins in there. Or maybe even Screech. I think Screech done okay over the summer as well. I think maybe we could see him in as well.
Yeah, and then Corey Hill goes back to the 4th division in Japan.
I think so. I think that's where Wales are sending him anyway, isn't it? I think that's sort of how it's ending up.
Okay, so it's not so you're not thinking a complete reset then for this pack. Still a place for these older heads, Beard and Rowlands and
I think it's
on
one
the
of the
bench,
issues.
and you could have Schwinzer on the bench as your back row replacement.
I think Schwinzer's you better bench. It depends how you view your own wanting to be a game. I would say Wales still stick better at the minute with a 5-3. Somebody like a utility second row, back row, just for broader coverage, can never be a bad thing for a 5-3 on the bench.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. I mean, I'm tempted to stick with Jenkins and Schwinzer, but then you can give them a bit more time to develop. I think if you get Beard and Rowlands back in there with that front row we were talking about, it seems a stronger front 5, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, so the Magic Boy, we're doing well here. What we're doing, this is actually seeming pretty logical in the end.
It's very well, yeah. It's doing better than I thought, to be fair. Actually.
Yeah, but obviously, comment section, tell us how wrong we are. That would be always good fun. Back row. So we've got a load of players here. Okay, we've got Schwinzer, who's in the back row potentially. Botham, Jack Morgan. We're hoping's fit. I mean, I haven't heard any updates on what his setback was. It's been quite quiet, which always worries me a bit. Have you heard anything?
I'm not aware of anything else. But if we're treating this team as everything's fine, everything's great.
Well, I mean, he was going to be okay for the summer potentially, so you'd hope come the autumn he'd be back.
But I think for me, I think 6 is Jack Morgan has just nailed on. I haven't seen anyone that's going to be able to take that away from him.
Well, you say that, but does Faletau come back into it? That would be because otherwise you'd say Wainwright's number 8 easy. Do you see Faletau having a place in this new Welsh setup, or do they simply move on? Because he's had such class performances in the past.
Yeah, the hype is still. I think there will eventually come a point, as I think sort of happened with Alan Wynne at one point, where the view backwards is so positive that maybe people don't see that it's sort of filtering out. I don't know. Faletau's such a great individual player. It's how they're going to build him into the team. Aaron Wainwright has been very in form right now. Yeah. And if that's what you're looking for to be able to win games, I think Aaron Wainwright could be looking at your number 8. And if you want to do the thing that Faletau does, where he ends up on the wing half the game and is sprinting down the wing and catch people out, that's something I think you could instill in an Aaron Wainwright to do the same thing. I wouldn't have I'm sure most people would want to have Faletau in there if he was fit and ready. You could even look at moving Wainwright to 6.
Well, I think that's what I'm getting at. I mean, we're assuming here that they're all fit. And so let's say Faletau is fully fit. He's into his 30s now. How old is he? 32, something like that?
33? I actually don't know. Don't have to top my head.
I don't know. Anyway, he's in his 30s, I'm sure. But if he's fully fit, does he start and Wainwright move to 6 and Morgan to 7?
That's a very heavy ball carrying back row, which is very useful. I think it depends on how Wales, what their style is, what the theme of their
okay. What is their style? You've watched them.
I don't think there is one.
Okay,
I think we're gone. I think that's probably one of the most unfortunate things at the minute. You look at so many other teams and the way they play. I think Wales have lost a lot of identity. I don't really think they know what they want to do anymore. Wales,
at the moment, it's the maul that is their strength. They try to buzz in my head. They try to buzz it around with Yohan Lloyd and Costello in the Six Nations, and that didn't seem to work. Now they've ditched Costello. I know we're getting into the backs here, and they've gone a bit more sensible. So if they're going for a bit more sensible, a bit more power first, do they go for that sort of back row and they drop Rafael as the jackler and go for that?
It's not a bad move to just have this huge carrying back row. The only thing I think would be just to have a larger element of diversity. I think having the jacklers in there, Wales are conceding points. They are having people break through. It is not the team where Sean Edwards was the defense coach and games were ending 15 points to 12. There were low scores on both sides of the ball. Wales are now conceding a lot of points, and they would concede more if other teams aren't making mistakes or Wales aren't getting over the ball. So
Yeah,
having three
Rafael
massive
does
ball
save the day a
characters
lot of times, doesn't
a
he?
lot, especially on that
Mm,
scramble on your own 5 meter, as is Dewi Lake. So I don't think it's bad to have someone like Jack Morgan
that's a
and
good point. Yeah,
Rafael
yeah,
for double Jackler, so that you concede less to have the better opportunity to get wins. I think the Wainwright Falatau argument is probably a great one to have, because I actually don't know which way people would rather go at the minute, just based on form, and because Falatau's not really been in the pictures. I would say stick with your
okay.
form, and you'd maybe lean into
Or
Wainwright
we
for number
could
8.
stack out the line out and have, say, Schwinzer in there at 6 as an extra jumper. That's
Yeah,
another thing. If you get Morgan and Rafael in there, of course, they're probably not jumping.
I
So
do think I'd be
fine.
picking Morgan over Rafael. If it came that you were going to move someone else into 6, you would shift him out to 7, and I
Yeah.
think I would still be picking him over Rafael for me.
Okay. All right. So we're going for Morgan, Rafael, Wainwright back row. Coming on, probably Schwinzer, but you do have Mackenzie Martin there as well, who looks like he could be one of those massive ball carriers again.
Yeah,
Plumtree's done fairly well. So there's a bit of competition there. But yeah, I'm happy to go Schwinzer on the bench for now. But what do you think of Mackenzie Martin? Do you think he's going to be top
I would
quality?
like to have more time to be able to go. I was surprised that he didn't. There's these little breaks that he had. Again, it's a Falatau-esque. He's suddenly on the wing and he's charging down
Mm,
the wing and he's away, and you think, oh yes, I see this element now. But about just getting over the being able to create something and get your hands away. Aaron Wainwright's been leading from the front for me. I
yeah,
still think more time probably needed for me to be able to see him in that international jersey ahead of others.
yeah.
But certainly someone I can see. We got 3 years to the next World Cup. I'm sure that's someone that will develop as we move along time wise.
Okay. All right. We're getting there. So that's our pack. Got a bit of everything there. A little bit more solid in the front 5. Bit of everything in the back row. Okay. We don't know what style they're going to play, but we're just guessing here. So into the back. So it looks like Gatland has been saying to Ellis Bevan, "You're the man." Is he the man at 9 for you? He looks solid. Him and Ben Thomas look solid. Is he just going for solid and reliable rather than a bit special, or am I being harsh?
I think for me again it goes back to the identity. I feel there's a real disconnect. I feel the Wales team at the minute to me feels a lot like they're sat down in a meeting and they put their props in one section, your locks in another, back rows, and they say this is what your job is for the day. Everyone is doing that job, but they don't communicate at all what anyone else is doing. And I think I've seen a couple of things about Bevan in his box kicking. People saying it's not really on point. I think he's doing good decision making, but nobody else is aware. So you'd have a really good box kick. It's really chaseable.
Yeah.
No one's running after it. So suddenly all you've done is give away possession. I think that begins to, you focus on, well, why did he kick it? Whereas actually a better connected team would say, no matter what, if you're doing a box kick, somebody needs to be under that. Somebody needs to be competing. I don't think he's done a bad job at all. I enjoyed seeing again against the Queens of Reds, Gareth Davis came back in and little interception, picks and runs, and he does all that great stuff. Scrum halves, it was an area of great depth not too long ago.
Mm.
It feels like it's beginning to drift off for me. I think Bevan would still be a fun start. Again, with the view of if you wanted to maybe look for the future, is Gareth Davis making the next World Cup? I'm sure he would
Yeah.
hope to.
Well, of
But
course. So we're
I think,
saying everyone's fit. So we're saying Thomas Williams is available as well, who I've always
yeah,
liked a lot if you're playing a fast game. If you're playing a controlled game, I don't know. Okay, so Bevan, Gareth Davis, Kieran Hardy, Thomas Williams. I think those are the 4 choices. Who would you have starting?
I would like to see Bevan start more because I want to see that progress. So I think the only way to do it is have him start. And I would probably have in Thomas Williams or Gareth Davis on the bench over Hardy for me.
Okay. Yeah.
But
Well, I've
I would
always
like to
been a
see Davis.
Williams fan, so let's go for that. Let's go for keep with Bevan, keep some continuity. Thomas Williams on the bench for some impact could well work. Then what do? I mean, Sam Costello, a little bit of a slap in the face for him as the only specialist 10 who didn't start at 10. But he still looks like the guy who creates for me the most dangerous, unpredictable player, still very young. But it looks like Gatland's put all his eggs in the Ben Thomas basket. Is that the right move for you?
Costello's the guy. I think if you just let him play, let him do this thing. I don't think Sam Costello fits in the same vein as what other Wales tens have been, and so You've got Gatland trying to make him play a certain way. And I think that, again, there just feels like a disconnect there. Again, you watch the game against the Queensland Reds, there's cross-field kicks, there's chip kicks over the top, and there's chaos going on, and defenses are struggling with it. You think, well, if that isn't a present in the proper international scene,
Yeah.
I still want to see the 10-12, Costello at 10, and Ben Thomas play 12, because I've seen
Double
him play 12
playmaker.
at Cardiff, and I think that could be a totally
okay.
different direction
Wow,
for
that's a
Wales to go
massive
in.
change.
But I would like to see it, and we just haven't got to see it. They don't seem to want to even sort of test that theory out.
Well, that Reds game would have been the one to see it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So what was your answer then? Who you playing?
I'll stick with Costello for now, just for
Stick with Costello.
Sort of kicking, yeah.
Well, as
just
in
a playmaker.
Go back to Costello.
Go back to Costello for me.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I think he is the most natural 10, like an old school Welsh 10 who is really unpredictable. But Gatland maybe doesn't like that. But yeah, no, I'm all for Sam Costello. I think he is the talent. And we've got Dan Evans. I keep hearing people saying Dan Evans should be in the squad. Do you think that's the case?
I think he's playing well. Again, it's another one that I just don't think is going to have a look in. I just don't think is being looked at. Ewan Lloyd seems to have just, I don't know, had his piece of paper torn up. I don't know what's happened there. Sheedy moving back to Cardiff as well. Maybe again, age thing. I think Sheedy's
a
little bit older now.
Chance, isn't he? Anscombe, of course, might be back, but injuries as well.
Yeah.
And then you got Jared Evans, who could potentially come in. I wonder if Patchell will ever return. I don't know. Anyway,
he's having a great time in Super
Rugby.
From what I see of the highlights and stuff, I think he's loving it out there.
Okay, so if Costello starts, is Thomas on the bench covering centres and 10?
Are we doing how I would build it, or how I think Wales would go about it? What are we?
How would you do it?
I would really like to see Ben Thomas at 12. I think at the minute the centre partnership for Wales.
Okay, let's do it. Well, the centres isn't working, so go on then.
Is centre, so I think that would be a totally different dynamic to do. I would like to see Ben Thomas play 12.
Yeah, which is where he plays.
Where he plays, but apart from in Wales, they chuck him at 10. But I think that would be a totally different style of attack for Wales. You could have
that kind of solves half a problem, because the centres haven't worked. I think that's pretty straightforward. So you're saying Grady has had his time at 12, doesn't look comfortable there. So we're saying Thomas at 12. So who plays 13? Is it young Eddie James straight in?
The 30, yeah, it's all a little bit up in the FA 30, because Nick Tompkins has had some difficulties with just defensive work, but his attacking game still seems solid.
Yeah, Owen but again, Watkin, he's getting on a little bit as well.
I've spoke about Owen Watkin very, very highly in the past. I think he's one of those, again, very underrated players that never got a real chance with the Wales team, and so now's his dribs and drabs in. And again, we saw him over this summer. Like, and it's not been the same level for me. Outside centre is probably one of the ones that I think is up for grabs, and people should be looking at could they get in and take that shirt. And that's what you want to see competition-wise. I think for just your consistency, to have someone in the team who knows what they're doing with people outside them, I think you're probably going to end up sticking with Nick Tompkins. But I don't think there would be anything too bad about looking to some younger lads, someone like James, to come in.
Yeah.
Can you create a centre partnership again for the future, rather than having people be play disjointed?
For me, for the future, going a bit more excitement, I think I'd go for James and have a bit of a chance on that one. If you're going for a new centre partnership, get a bit of extra size in there. Thomas isn't exactly massive, is he? Tompkins isn't that big. So I'd say go with James. Then what do we do with Grady? Does he go on the bench or does he go on the wing?
I don't think there's anything wrong with Grady on the bench. The ability to just chuck him in at centre, and he has games where he does do well at centre when he comes on from the bench. You think back to, was it Italy in the Six Nations? He came on and just ran 80 meters up the pitch and scored.
I think it would be a mistake just to discard him, wouldn't it? He's got so much potential.
The thing is, I just don't think he's. I don't think that's a blame on him. I think it's the idea you're putting him out of a position and expecting him to be able to play to that level. I just don't think he's experienced enough to understand the defensive elements for 12 yet. So chucking him on at 65 minutes when everyone's a bit tired, and he's Mason Grady, who's going to outrun a lot of people on that pitch, I don't think is a bad move at all. But he can cover the wing, cover your centre. I think he's a good bench player for me.
Okay, and we don't need a 10 on the bench either. So we could go 6-2 here. We could go back, and we'll come back to that in a minute. Okay, so Grady's on the bench. We've got Thomas Williams on the bench. So we've got two backs on the bench. So back three. Josh Adams straight back in?
I don't think so for me.
No?
Again, another player that I think, looking back, fabulous.
Yeah.
But now I didn't see anything over the Six Nations where I was, we have the fantasy on the go and the fantasy TN, and you can check all these players' stats. And you go, he's not making meters with the ball. He's, it's a winger. It's what you want. I think Josh Adams, for me, unfortunately, is going to slowly begin to peter out.
Yeah.
Rio Dyer's, I think, at the minute going to be still nailed on. I still don't think defense is questionable, but I've liked over the summer. I feel like he's put on size,
He's
so it
been
feels like
consistent. He's
I
like
feel like
he's
there's
kind of
power.
saying this is my shirt, isn't he? But I'm still not quite sure he's top draw international winger. But we're
No,
quite thin on the ground at the moment.
the back three is an element where I feel
Mm.
like a lot of people could fight out for it.
So Dyer starts on
Um,
one wing, and then Liam Williams, is he at 15 for you?
I still prefer him at 50. I just think he's got it's expertise,
Right.
it's age and caps, and he
Yeah.
understands the backfield more. Cam Winnett's been fine at fullback, but again, I'm waiting for the game to say, wow, oh, he's the Welsh version of Hugo Keenan.
Yeah.
He's under the ball like Freddie Stewart is for England. You want to be able to say something, whereas I think he's just done perfectly fine coverage in that backfield. His main option seems to be just run forwards after catching it into someone and take it into the next phase, rather than maybe trying to do a smart kick afterwards or try and get out of it. I still think Liam Williams for me is going to be my fullback there.
Yeah. Yeah. Williams is a better 15, I think. He's a great winger as well, but he's a little bit slower than he used to be. But he's still got all the skills, hasn't he? So Liam Williams 15, Rio Dyer on one wing. So we still have a wing spot unless we promote Grady again. You've got the newcomer, if you like, not the youngster, Keenan Grace, is newcomer to rugby union.
Union.
And then beyond that, do you have any other suggestions?
It's all looking a bit thin on the ground. I mean, again, people have disappeared, right? Steph Evans is, I feel like, has had an opportunity and
Yeah,
sort of
Stefan.
ventured out. Keelan Giles, another one that just seemed to not really, have a big shot with the Wales team. I enjoyed watching. I forgot his name now.
Hathaway,
It's, Grace. Sorry, on the
Grace.
wing.
Oh, yeah,
I
yeah,
enjoyed watching
yeah.
him play as
He's
a
a
totally.
talent. The guy is an
Yeah,
absolute talent for sure. There's no
I like
doubt. He
seeing
just
the
hasn't
pace.
played the game much.
Hathaway's game that we got to see on his debut, I don't think he'll be too happy with his
No,
with his debut. But maybe again, maybe there's something to venture
he's
into.
very young
He's
indeed.
clearly got a distinctive kicking element to his game, which I don't think worked in that game, and maybe is already being picked up on by other teams and therefore doesn't really work. International's a different level. Every time he had the ball, he wanted to kick all the time, and it's sometimes you've got to put that. Someone like James Lowe is exactly the same, but James Lowe's kicks achieve something. They go somewhere. They make an issue for the defense. It's a great exit
Yeah. Well,
clearance.
Hathaway's
I
only
don't.
had one game, hasn't he? So
Yeah, so I think again we'd see maybe Hathaway in the future. I would be interested to see Grace do more.
yeah.
I think what do you have in rugby league, like 80 something tries? That's someone that's going to get over the try line.
I mean, it's
Seems
a
like a
bit of a
powerful
risk,
runner
though, isn't it? Starting, saying he is our starter after one game
after
against
one
the
game,
Reds.
and also the technical aspect. He seems to have a very similar skill set to Rio Dyer. So if
Yes.
it's not working on one side of the field, you're miraculously
Mm,
hoping that it's going to work on the
yeah.
other.
I'd
I
be tempted to have him on the bench for now and have Grady on the other wing as that big size
It
winger
makes it
potentially.
makes sense to sort of throw that, but I think they've tried the thing. I think if you were going to do that, I think you would even swap wings. I would put Grady back on 11, and I
Sure.
would move Rio Dyer over to play right wing to go down that
Okay.
way. They've tried it with the bulky wingers before though,
Yeah.
and back in the Cuthbert days, fantastic. But Cuthbert more recently, it's not been the same thing. Owen Lane as well, massive unit on the wing. Again, it doesn't seem to be
No,
the
yeah,
Wales
Owen
plan and
Lane
the
was
way
going to
they
be the
play.
next big thing, wasn't he? And that never happened. Okay, let's do it. You convinced me. Let's keep Grady on the bench. Let's have the speedsters. Let's give it a shout. Dyer and Grace. Let's hope they get the ball. And if you've got Ben Thomas at 12 and you are playing with a bit more width, going out to Liam Williams and wider, okay, let's go for it. So we do have an extra spot because we don't need a 10 on the bench because we've got Ben Thomas who can cover 10. So let's take another. We can take another forward, or is there someone else you really want in
You might
this
have to read
23? Oh, yeah,
what
no
we've got on the
problem.
bench currently for me.
So at the moment, we've got Schwinzer is the back row on the bench. So you could have Botham, Mackenzie Martin, Falatau, Plumtree, or someone else.
I would probably be looking at Falatau very much for that back row, with the idea that Schwinz is going to do 6. You've got we had Morgan starting at 6, if I remember rightly.
Yep.
Yep. So you've got your 6-7 covered there with Morgan going off. You've got Morgan covered by the 6 if Schwinzer comes off, and then you've got 8 covered with Faletau on the bench for me coming on for Wainwright.
Okay, sorted. Absolutely no problem. So I'm sure everyone will be completely in agreement. But if by any chance you're not, please do comment below and say what would your team be and why, and let us know how you think this Welsh team should play. If we're having Costello and Thomas at 10 and 12, we're obviously saying they need to move the ball around a fair bit, be a bit unpredictable. Yeah, but we'll see. Morgan, any final comments? Looking forward for Wales into the autumn. What do you think is going to happen?
Fiji is a game. I think it's a game I've been to see a lot. It's a brutal game to go and play.
Yeah.
I think that could be one to.
But
to
we say must win. I think they will be looking to win that game, won't they? Big time.
Yeah, but then I think if you saw the New Zealand Fiji game, I don't think Fiji were quite where they wanted to be either. So I think that could be a game they should absolutely prep for. Australia are going to have a great opportunity off the back of the Rugby Championship
revenge
games.
One, isn't it?
They're going to be. I think Australia are going to be slightly out of reach, and I think South Africa again out of reach just seems to be the way that fixture is at the minute for them. But Fiji, the target game for me.
Yep, for sure. Okay, we'll leave it there then, Morgan. That was awesome. Thank you so much. I couldn't have done it without you for sure. Anything you want to say to the viewers about your channel?
No, hopefully we get to see something from Wales. Like I said, as we said in the, I'm sure the comment section will be in full agreement because the comment section never says we're wrong. So we look forward to having a look through and seeing what people have to say. I'm sure people will come with a much better team than I can come up with.
Awesome. Okay, well, if you like this sort of chat, do subscribe, do like, and get over to the Mad Dragon as well and subscribe there. That would be awesome. And we'll catch you later.